Hi, I'm Adora Lumina Mbelu and welcome to my channel. I hope you've been enjoying all the amazing material that I've been sharing so far. Okay, so today's topic is a very interesting one. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about time. Time is one of those things that people do not understand is such a huge resource for anything that we're trying to accomplish in this life. People tend to think that money is the most important resource, but it's actually time, because time is a limited resource. Okay, so you cannot buy time. You cannot buy yesterday. You cannot buy tomorrow. You just have to work with the time that you have on your hands per time, right? So for the moment. So I'm going to be talking about time, and I'm going to be talking about how you can better manage your time so that you're not finding yourself in a spot where you're constantly just being like, oh, I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to accomplish that. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to eat healthy. We always have excuses for why we don't have time. So hopefully by the end of this video, you will have figured out some things that will help you to just manage your time better. But first of all, let's talk about why time management is important. Okay, so why is time management important? I found some things that prove to me and show me on my journey, right, that time management is very important. So the first one is that time management actually helps improve self-discipline. Okay, so if you're the type of person that is looking to have a disciplined life and to just really be more disciplined with everything that you're doing, because I really believe that anything you want to accomplish in this life, like, discipline is such a huge part of it. It's a huge factor. The more that you learn how to manage your time, like, it just gives you that opportunity to improve, what you say yes to, what you say no to, just improve your willpower, your control of the things that you do, your control of how you decide to do those things. So in general, it just improves self-discipline. Time management also just helps increase the quality of your work. So if you're not constantly in a place where you are rushing through things to deliver, so you're like a lastminute.com type situation, you start to find that your work is actually, the quality of your work is actually improving because you have time to think about it, you have time to put it together, so your finished product is actually brilliant. Time management also opens up a world of new possibilities, okay? So when you start to manage your time, you start to find that, you're also able to be more creative. You find creative endeavors that you're interested in. You start to pick up hobbies. It just opens up new opportunities that you didn't really know exist because you're always swamped. And then time management also stops you from missing opportunities all the time because you're always saying, hey, I'm swamped, I can't take this opportunity, I can't touch that, I can't touch this. So when you start to learn how to manage your time, then you can take more opportunities. You can find yourself in a situation where you don't have to always say no because of time. So you're not saying no because you don't want to do something or because something is not working for you, but most times you're saying no because you don't have the time for it. This video will help you to also free up that time and that space to be able to do those things. Time management is also great because it's a great stress reliever. Okay, so you're not always stressed, you're not always tired, you have more time to rest. So I'm hoping that the tips that I share with you today will just help open up a world of possibilities for you and will just help you to manage your time better, okay? All right, so my first tip for you is to do a time audit, right? So do an audit of how you're currently using your time. And you can do this through like a log, right? Where you actually write down on a paper or you can do this on like Google Docs or something where you just say, how am I currently using my time? So when I wake up in the morning, what time do I wake up? What do I do between, so if you wake up at 6 a.m. for instance, what do you do between 6 a.m. and you getting out of the house, right? Ask yourself, what do you do when you're in the office? Like, how long does it take you to work? Whatever it is, like, how long does it take you to eat? When you start to log these things, you'll get a better idea of how you're currently using your time. For you to manage your time better, you need to know how you're using it now. And this is what this time audit does for you. It will surprise you, the things you'll find. Like, sometimes you'll just find that you are spending so much time on your phone, or you're spending so much time eating, like you're spending more time than necessary, to eat a meal, or you're spending time talking and having conversations with friends. So this time log will help you to see that. All right, so your next tip is to keep a log of your tasks. So this is typically what we would call to-do lists, right? But the thing with to-do lists is that a lot of times we make it so complex that is just very hard to get through it. Okay, so keep a log of your tasks, but make sure that you're very specific. So instead of saying, oh, I'm gonna cook dinner, right? Be very specific and say cook yam and eggs, right? Because again, that gives you an idea of how long it will typically take to cook those things, but it will also let your brain just start to train itself to see timing and patterns in your timing as well. So be very, very specific with your to-do list. Like, don't be so vague. Like, don't just put, again, cook dinner, or don't just put, go to the gym. Like, go to the gym for 20 minutes. Like, be very specific about those things, so that you are hitting your tasks head on and you're not wasting a lot of time with the fluff. The next one is to set a time limit to your tasks. So whenever you do your to-do list and you're making your task list, right? Again, make sure that everything is as timed as possible. So don't just leave it open-ended, right? So if you're gonna read a book, if you're putting something that says, I want to read a book, like read a book for 50 minutes. Like, again, be very specific with the timing that you put to these things, because it'll just allow you to be very specific and to just like focus on executing that particular thing that you want to do within that timeline. When you leave it open-ended, again, this is about brain training. When you leave it open-ended, your brain is basically saying it doesn't matter how long it takes. And this is what typically happens even with meetings when people set meeting times, is that you just set the time to actually start the meeting, but you don't set the time to end the meeting, okay? But once you start to put those things in place, your brain will just trigger to just say, okay, I only have 1 hour for this meeting. So which means I need to try and get out as much value as possible within that timeline, versus trying to just, navigate it to whenever it runs. All right, so your next tip is to establish a morning routine and an evening routine. And this is something that I have learned to do. Okay, so in the morning, decide what that routine is for you. Like, don't switch it every single time so that it's just not all over the place. So for instance, like, I will say to myself, like, okay, I have like my morning routines. I wake up at a particular time. When I wake up, I'm going to drink my tea. And while I'm drinking my tea, it also gives me time to sort of meditate, and then I'm moving into like, making my breakfast, packing my breakfast, because most times I don't actually eat at home, so I just like pack my breakfast. Then I know like I'm getting ready to go to the gym. A lot of times I might not necessarily like shower, like I just quickly wash, because I know I'm going to the gym and I'm going to shower after I get back from the gym. And then it allows me to just use that morning time as good as possible, right? So as strategic as possible, right, to accomplish what it is that I need to do before I actually get out the door. In the evening, the same thing, like establish a routine that works for you, because your daytime, right, in the middle part between your morning and your evening, so many things just happen. And even as much as you try to plan your time within that block, because a lot of the things that you do, especially if you're working, right, don't necessarily always you're not always controlling those things. Like, third party also gets involved and controls, but like you can't tell when your boss is going to call you into the office, those kind of things. Because you can't control that, try as much as possible to control what you can, which is typically your mornings and your evenings, to the best of your ability. Like, one of the things I make sure I do in the evenings is I listen to podcasts. So that's when I spend a lot of time just sort of like learning, and I also use my evenings to try and rest. So I wouldn't answer my phones after a certain time, regardless of who it is. So unless I wanted to reach someone for a particular reason, I would typically just be like, not touching my phone during this period. All right, so your next tip is to plan ahead, right? What I mean by plan ahead is set out whatever it is you need for a particular thing per time. So I'll give you an example. Point in case is the night before, set out all the things you're going to be wearing the next day. Okay, so don't wing it. In your adult life, we try to wing everything. When we were kids, we used to set out our clothes and we're like, oh, this is what I'm wearing tomorrow, and you set it out. But like in your adult life, you're just trying to wing it. Like, I'll just wake up, whatever I see, I'll pick, or like I'll look for my clothes in the morning. But I found that if the night before, you can just lay your clothes aside, even down to like your underwear, okay? Like, don't disregard how much time those things actually take to decide. right? Because you're like, oh, am I wearing like a gray t-shirt or am I wearing blue t-shirts? Like that can take like 15 minutes in the morning. For some people, it can take an hour. So I will typically just like set out what I'm wearing, and I will pack my gym bag as well with all the stuff that I'm taking to the gym. This way, I know that in the morning, like I'm just going, like I can stick to my routine because I don't have to be worrying about like what it is I'm wearing. So whatever it is that you are doing, like for a task, and this can apply to anything that you're doing throughout the day. Always make sure that you do the pre-production, like I call it. So the pre-preparation is what I call the pre-production, right? Do that first so that when you're in production mode, like you're not focusing on the things that you didn't do before. All right, so your next tip is to delegate and outsource as much as possible. There are some things that we do in our day-to-day lives that don't necessarily require our specific attention. Like you don't absolutely have to do it yourself. If you're a perfectionist type person, which most of us are, I know some people like to think that they're the only ones who are perfectionists, but we really all have the tendency for perfection. If you're that type of person, like just understand that there are still things in your life that you don't absolutely have to touch. They may not always come out like you envision them, but it's okay. Like if it's not going to do any large damage to anything, like don't worry so much about it, right? Just have other people help out with these tasks, right? It truly takes a village for you to be successful, for you to do the things that you want to do in this life. It truly takes a village to make that happen. It takes, asking people for help where you can, right? It takes being willing and trusting to just let some things go. You don't have to figure out every single thing. You don't have to pick a particular wrapping paper. I know that there's a part of you that is like, if I send this person to go and get wrapping paper, they're not going to get the type of wrapping paper. I promise you that the person that you're sending that gift to does not care about the wrapping paper. So some things are not like priority, right? So figure out, is this really priority? Like, do I have to absolutely be a part of this, or can somebody else handle it? And just let it go. Let the outcome go. Like, don't stress too much about the outcome. You'll start to find that when you start to trust people to do things like that, it gets done. It actually gets done. A lot of the panic is in your head, right? So once you start to do that, you start to realize, oh wow, it's actually getting done. And the more other people help, the more your life becomes easier. And that, again, you can assign that time to doing more priority things to you. All right, so your next tip is to use an online calendar to schedule your time. So as much as possible, whenever you get a request for something, for someone wanting your time, find a calendar that works. I personally use Google Calendar. So the first thing I do is once somebody tells me, hey, we should meet up, like I just put it in, right? So this way I can always look at my calendar on my phone and just see how my time is for that week. Time management is also about studying patterns. That's why I said do an audit at the very beginning, because once you start to do that, you start to see patterns. So whenever I feel like, I have too many meetings set up in a particular week, then I'm like, okay, I need to go lighter the next week, right? And then you keep tweaking like that until you find yourself having like a calendar that works for you, because this is about what works for you, not what works for other people. Some people pack their schedules full and they're able to, live a life that way, right? Some people can multitask multiple things, and everyone has different ways of operating. So this is about finding what works for you. So I usually schedule everything, and this way it allows me to see stuff per time. My next tip for you is to try as much as possible to schedule fun activities or some of the catching up, things that are a little bit less professional. Try to schedule that around traffic time, right? So if you live in a city like I do, where there's always a lot of traffic, what I try to do in my traffic time is maybe to listen to an audiobook, maybe again to listen to podcasts. I love podcasts. Maybe it's to call family and friends, like people I haven't caught up with in a while, and just like, let me use this time that I'm in traffic to catch up with those people as well, like return missed calls, like all of that stuff, right? So that when you get to your destination, you're not now spending time having to return those phone calls or having to, you're not spending a lot of time trying to catch up on stuff. So I usually will dedicate my traffic time to either fun activities, learning activities, or just communication in general, like catching up with my different relationships. All right, so my next tip for you is manage your social media time. Okay, we live in a digital age, obviously, with social media always always trying to distract us from things, but also just begging for our time all the time. Okay, so learn to plan how you use your social media. And it's different for different people, especially if you're a person that also uses social media for your work. Because like my social media is very heavy on my work activities, right? So because I'm building a community on there and I am nourishing this community as much as possible with the content that I create, I'm usually on social media, but I make sure that I curate my feed so that I'm not lingering and going to go and look for things that I'm not meant to be spending time on. But there are also times where I literally like delete my app, like any of the social media apps that is taking too much of my time. So if I feel like I'm distracted by it for a period of time, I just delete it. It has nothing to do with me hating social media. Like I absolutely love social media, but it just, again, it's about time management, right? So when I find that when I delete it versus just logging out, when you log out, again, your brain is still sort of like telling you, go, click on it. When every time you open your phone and you see the app sign, you're just like, oh, I'm just going to click on it. But when you delete it completely, the stress of having to like download it again for now is just going to discourage you from actually, clicking on the app. So manage your social media time as much as you can. Find a way that works for you. For some people, for people like me, for instance, it's just, I just don't follow too many people. Like I can't, this way I'm not cluttering my space, which leads me into the next tip. Declutter your space. Decluttering is very important. Like you shouldn't have to search for stuff every time you're looking for it. That takes up a lot of time. Like, see, this time management thing, yeah, it's not about saving hours of time at a stretch. It's about saving 5 minutes that lumps up into hours. Trust me, when you do your audit, you start to see how you're really wasting time. So I always make sure that I declutter my space. My space at home, my space in the office. I make sure I try to put things in places where I can find them whenever I need them. So I'm looking for a hard drive. I know where it is. I'm looking for, a t-shirt. Like I know where it is. I try to color code things, but this is just like me being extra OCD, by the way. But I can see how it helps, which is why I'm sharing the tip with you, okay? Because I can then see things where they are when I need them. I'm not spending time, looking for them. My final tip for you, and then we're going to end this video, is sometimes learn to say no. Okay, so sometimes you have to say no. Like there are times where you will get great opportunities. I know I talked earlier about, making sure that you manage your time well so that you're able to get more opportunities, but you also have to figure out, right? You have to discern to know when you should actually say no. Like I cannot do this thing. Because the thing is, people will always be dragging for our attention, right? People are always going to drag for your attention and you cannot blame them. So there are times where you'll say stuff to yourself like, oh, this person, don't they know I have all these things to do and they're asking me to do that? No, they don't know that you have all those things to do because guess what? You said yes to them. So the thing is, you cannot blame third party. They're not the ones responsible for controlling your time. You are responsible for controlling your time. Okay, so you need to know when your yes is yes, like you do have the time to do something, and when your no is, yeah, I really would love to do this thing, but you know what? I don't have time to do it. So let me not commit to stuff. Because I found that a lot of the people who struggle with time, sometimes it just comes from overcommitting to things that we know that we intend to do, but that we really do not have the energy to execute. And then that sort of weighs on you and stresses you out. So again, I hope that these tips that I've given you will help you better manage your time and will free you up to do more empowering and impactful stuff that you want to do on your life's journey. If you enjoyed this video, or if you know anyone who is struggling with their time management, please send them this video so they can watch it. Also subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be sharing so much amazing stuff over the next couple weeks, months, years. And you can follow me on Instagram as well at adora.lumina. You can also follow lumination.tribe, where we share so much insightful content. All right, love you guys, and I will catch you on the next episode.